Grade 10 parents, and welcome to the Outdoor Education Parent Info video for your Grade 10 students. We've moved to this platform instead of the face-to-face parent meeting, as it seems to be much more appropriate for parents. So please view this video and also take a look at some of the other sources of information that we have, and that is primarily our WolfNet group. So you can follow through to your WolfNet portal and look at the Groups tab. Under that tab there'll be a Grade 10 Outdoor Education, and you'll be able to follow along in a various topic depending on which trip your child has chosen. Of course, you can also contact Miss Loger or myself if you have any other questions about the trip after this video is complete. So firstly, just to dispel the myths, while it is an adventurous program, we're also trying to run a program that challenges students, but is definitely accessible for all students in the grade as well. So we're not trying to take on any extreme risks, but really just push students into a personal challenge at a level that really suits them. So for this trip, we have offered a lot of different options, and students have already selected an option for themselves. The different trips we offer depend on the numbers of people that choose each trip, but essentially that's the list there in front of you, with a couple of sea kayak trips, some canoeing trips, a hike, and some more multidisciplined adventure trips that stay a little bit closer to home. Where is it exactly that your child might be going? Well, this map here gives us a little bit of an overview. It's all on Vancouver Island, based out of Strathcona Park Lodge. All groups will spend some time at the lodge and then head out in different directions depending on what their chosen trip is. The sea kayaks run out near the coast, as well as the Burman River canoe, while hiking trips are a little bit closer to Buttle Lake and to the lodge. Now, there's an interactive version of this map on the WolfNet group if you want to investigate the exact locations a little bit further. Now, in terms of specific dates and times, I'm going to leave them out of this presentation, but they are all available on WolfNet. We're heading off on the Monday morning, and then students will be returning on Friday afternoon at approximately 3:30. And please do check out the exact meeting times on WolfNet. In terms of the itinerary, we spend the majority of Monday travelling out to Strathcona Park Lodge and preparing for the field or the camping portion of the trip. It's important to note that the kayaking, canoeing, and hiking trips generally leave from Strathcona Park Lodge on the Monday afternoon, and they spend their first night out camping, and they'll continue to camp out on Monday night, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night before returning to the lodge on Thursday night. The adventure trips, though, spend both Monday night at the lodge and then the Friday night, with only the Tuesday and Wednesday nights out camping. On Thursday evening, all groups will be back together at Strathcona Park Lodge for a final closing ceremony and celebration, and then we spend the majority of Friday travelling back to school. In terms of the food and facilities, at the lodge, it is renowned for its excellent food, its wonderful dining, and it's also a pleasant surprise when students recognise that there's running water, there's showers, although there still is no Wi-Fi. When we're camping, then there is no running water, and students are not eating in a dining hall, but are instead preparing the meals for themselves, with a lot of help from staff as well. And that cooking on all of these trips generally happens on an open fire, but with close supervision from staff. Now, also to note is that the camping is not in a tent, but it's under a tarp. So it's a really unique and exciting experience about Strathcona, and this is something that Strathcona Park Lodge run with all of their groups. It means when the weather's really nice, they can open the tarp up and students are looking at the stars, and typically students come away with a really great memory of that. It does mean, though, that there's not the same bug protection, and so I do recommend that students bring some sort of repellent with them. In terms of specific trip information, I won't go over all of the details of each trip in this. Instead, please go to the WolfNet page and click on the trip that your child has chosen to get a little bit more details about their specific itinerary, including packing lists and who else is on their trip as well. Now, in terms of supervision, Strathcona Park Lodge, we contract them to deliver this program. So they put 2 of their staff onto each of the different trips that we run. On top of that, West Point Grey also add 1 of our own staff or instructors to supervise that, and this is sort of above and beyond what most schools do. Now, we really value the care and the feedback of our own staff, and we feel that's super valuable for us. But they're not all full-time teaching staff. Some of those staff that we employ are our other outdoor education guides who work with us on regular occasions. Now, Mr. Bendel, Miss Loger, and myself are always on this program, and each year one of us stays back at the lodge to be the camp host or the kind of camp mum or dad when all the trips are out. And so that's the person that would be the go-to communication for anything that might need conversation or some extra communication during the week. In terms of risks, all these trips come with some elevated risks. Common injuries or issues that we face are more surrounding cuts and scrapes from slipping or falling or tripping. We occasionally get homesickness and rolled ankles, and otherwise it's more mosquito bites or people not looking after themselves adequately in terms of a scrape that they don't attend to and don't bring anyone else's attention to, or they try and avoid using the bathroom for a whole week. In terms of transport, it's a bit of a long day out on buses and ferries. Some of the trips require access to the trailhead by logging road, and Strathcona Park Lodge use these roads very regularly and generally really well up to date on what sort of activities are happening on the roads and the conditions. So we feel like that's pretty well monitored as well. In terms of other risks, the biggest ones we typically face are highlighted in bold there. In terms of wildlife, it's mice. It's nothing bigger. There are bear and cougar around, but we find that mice tend to be the thing that causes the most havoc. In terms of weather, in September it can get quite rainy out on the island, and so the biggest way to mitigate that risk is to make sure students are following the packing list and they're really carefully preparing for their trip. Some double checking of their packing will also occur out at the lodge before departure, but we really encourage people to follow the packing list carefully. In terms of the specific risks of each of these trips, if you visit the WolfNet page, there is a link on the right-hand side with a much more comprehensive list of the risks and the controls that we use to manage some of those risks. Now, our students are generally awesome. They're, as you know, pretty awesome kids, and one of the things we ask though is that electronics are left behind, and that's a bit of a large ask for some. But we really want face-to-face engagement and communication to happen out on these trips, and we kind of value that technology-free time. Otherwise, just packing and preparing, being participatory, and always behaving in a way that the school would expect. While we're out on trip, you can always contact the school and they can relay a message out to Strathcona Park Lodge. Or John Pike is a great out-of-hours emergency contact as well, and he'll be able to get in touch with Strathcona Park Lodge in the case of emergency. Each trip has some form of communication. It might not be instantaneous, but they do run regular check-ins to try and ensure we can always be in touch with groups in the field. Now, just a couple of things to wrap up. Students might be interested in the Duke of Ed program, and the grade 10 camp generally satisfies the silver medal for the adventurous portion of that award. The only exception to that is an adventure trip because it's a little bit less intensive, and so that, I believe, satisfies the bronze, but do get in touch with Mr. Pike for any details on that. And so finally, just some things that need to happen is completing the consent forms, both the paper versions from Strathcona and the WolfNet consent. Access the WolfNet info to make sure you're up to date with all the details of the trip. And then please contact Miss Loga or myself if you have any questions that haven't been answered to this point. In all, though, it should be a great week out. We hope you enjoy some quiet time while your children are off on their adventure. And thanks very much for listening.